reapproach the meaning of this life I'm living. Had to reapproach my calling, had to fight for wisdom. Let me reapproach the mirror, need a better image. Let me reapproach the script to write a better ending. Yeah, I'm in a better mode.
I want to ask this one question. If you could create your very own school from the ground up, starting from scratch, where would you start? What would you do? How would you design it? From top to bottom, what would you do? Now, while you're thinking about that, I have a person with me today, my guy Ken, who not only thought about it, but is doing it right now. And through his learning, you know what? I'm not even going to butcher it up. I want to let Ken introduce himself and just talk a little bit about current and what that is and what he has going on.
Yeah, thanks. Any opportunity that I get to hang with you, Neil, even if it's just on a screen, I'm good. So thank you.
No problem.
Yes. So the question's almost like, what would you do if you could recreate civilization? Right? Like is that big? Just about every kid goes to school, right? Like every parent has kids that go to school. I'll say every, but almost every, or they have to think about schooling. So even if they choose not to send their kids to school or homeschool, they still are thinking about schooling. So your question was, where do I start? And I start pretty much where I start everything else, in relationship, right? So,
Nice.
right, you're talking systems, you're talking individuals, but really at the core, when I make every decision, is this relational or can it be more relational? So some things, schools are businesses, right? The ones around me, they're $100 million businesses, each one of them.
Right. Okay.
I'm not a $100 million business, right? So, I started a education center, right?
Okay.
I try not to call it a school.
Yeah.
Most people say like there's an equal sign between education and school, but there really doesn't have to be, right? Like
Okay.
you've learned, in the past 3 minutes we were talking, Neil, and you were talking about all this stuff you've learned. You didn't
Yeah.
learn it in school.
True.
Like you didn't. And
This
you
is true.
learned it out of a need and a desire, right? You wanted to do something in the world that felt productive. So you had to learn stuff that you didn't already know. Kids are exactly the same way, and usually times about 1,000, because they're curious about all kinds of stuff.
Mm.
I'll stop there for a second.
Yeah. No, that's a good place to pause. Because you're right there. Traditionally, there is that education equals school for it. And I mean, that's just not the case. It's just not the case. And I would venture to say that a lot of people, a lot more than I would probably think, feel the same way. However, they just don't know what to do from there. It's just like, yeah, this isn't really working. I mean, what else? What else is there? What else can I do? I got to work. I can't homeschool. And even if I did homeschool, what could I teach them? Am I really preparing them for life? That kind of stuff, the real world and all of that. I mean, how do you kind of approach that, kind of that thinking or that way of thinking?
So I spent 24 years, I'll just call it in the system. I taught middle school and high school science for 24 years. And for, I would say, the last 10 years of that, more than 10 years, I knew it wasn't working for a lot of kids. It especially hit me when I was teaching high school in, I would say, it was 2010, 11, 12, somewhere around then. We had a lot of kids using a lot of drugs. And one of the things that I thought they were missing, this was at the time, was nature. I grew up outside. I grew up being able to just kind of do my thing outside. And I
Where
thought
did you
that
grow
was
up at, Ken?
I grew up in Bucks County. So
Okay,
just, suburb of Philly. But it
gotcha.
was back then it was pigs and cows and corn. And I grew up, I grew up outside. I grew up in the creek out back, so to me, the big missing piece for them was nature connection. And I started thinking about building a school where kids would spend all their time outside and do adventure kinds of activities. They would go skiing in the winter. They'd go mountain biking in the summer. They would hike. They would rock climb, or they would just be outside in the woods. And I actually went to see a school like that out in California. What I realized was that wasn't the missing link. that I thought it was.
Okay.
It was coercion. Kids are in a coercive environment in most school settings. I won't say all. In most school settings, kids are told what to do, and if they don't do it, there's a penalty. That penalty could be grades, and they're told if they get bad grades, they're gonna not be able to do anything with their whole life. Right. Like it's also a lie. But we try to over, right? Not power
Right.
with. So power over, it's coercive. Like if you're walking down the hall too fast, you get in trouble for running, right? Where you can get a detention. One of the funniest things, my daughter, when she turned 18, she was still in high school. She was a little bit older for her senior. And she's like, Dad, I can vote for the president of the United States of America. But if I want to go to the bathroom, I have to ask permission. And if I want to walk in the hallway, I have to have a special pass. I'm like, that's messed up. Come on. 18-year-old
Yeah.
kid voting, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So she recognized that something was off, right? I
yeah,
would imagine that there were conversations at the dinner table, and whatnot throughout the house just about things and whatnot. But so she's in the system, was getting ready to come out of it, right? And was like, something is off here.
yeah. My son, when he was in middle school, he pretty much said the same thing. And I'm not sure if I ever told you this line, but I tell it to lots of people. He's like, he was in 8th grade, I think. He's like, Dad, what did I do to get sentenced to 13 years? Like, I didn't do anything, but I got to come to this place. I got to sit in the room they tell me to sit in. I got to, well, I gotta walk down the side of the hallway they tell me to walk down. I gotta hang with people I don't really want to be with. I gotta listen to adults that I don't have a relationship with, but I have to do it. So for me, I thought it was nature connection.
Okay.
But really what I've come back to is natural. That
Okay.
schooling can be natural or learning can be natural, right? Like again, like your natural learning. There's stuff that you've learned in the past. Well, geez, we've had enough conversations. I know a lot of the stuff you've learned, some
Yeah.
of the stuff you've learned over the past 10 years, not because you're getting a grade for it, not because it's going to get you money. It's because you want to make a mark in the world and you got to learn stuff to do it. Kids are the same way. They want to make their mark in the world, and they eventually realize once that we stop telling them what to learn, they realize that they need to learn stuff and that they just need people to help them. Adults, us, right? We've been through it, and now it's
Yes.
our turn to pass it along. Not in a way. I got a million analogies. So, I love ice cream. I think you know that, right? Like
Yes.
you caught me the one time sneaking down. You were like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "Just getting a little ice cream." But like, if somebody started feeding me ice cream all day and they're like, "Eat this, it's yummy." I'm like, "All right, I'll eat a little bit of it." And they're like, "No, keep
Fresh.
eating it." Right, you got to keep eating it. Oh wait, you know what? Now go to the next room. They're going to feed you ice cream, but they're going to keep giving it to you even if you don't want more because it's yummy, because you like it. They're going to keep giving you more of it. I don't want any more, sir. Nope, you're going to keep eating the ice cream because it's good.
Yeah.
I'm over it. I'm over it.
Yeah. 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 Ken, man, every time we talk, and especially when we go down this path, the gears are turning, smoke start coming out my ears a little bit, because what is doing on a number of levels is, challenging the status quo, or just, introducing a new way, a different way. Yeah, man. But I also have to almost kind of quiet and silence all of the questions. Like, but what? Like, for instance, like, so how do kids? How are they going to go get a job? How are they going to get into college? Aren't colleges? No, don't they need to go to college? What are they? How does that
Sure,
even
they
look? I mean,
they can go to college. They don't have to.
yeah,
That's why I said when you asked the question, like, how would you recreate a school? How would you create a
uh,
school if you could start from scratch? It's like, how would you start a civilization if you started from scratch? The question is almost that big, right? That's
uh,
why, because there's so many things. There's so many things. So there was a book written in 1970s called Deschooling Society by Ivan Illich. And so it's not changing what school looks like. It's taking the concept of school out of the way we think about how we live and who we are. It's so fundamental. That's why it's such a challenge. It's huge. So, I've not that I want to remake civilization, but this is like my, well, maybe, but this is my like little slice that
Huh.
really is like a big slice. It's huge. I mean, if you think just in the US, it is, I breathe, I've done a lot of like, just like, all right, this is the path I've taken because I believe. So one of the things I've realized about myself recently is just this idea of being free, right? Like being a free person, people being free, like having autonomy to make choices about how they live and want to be. Sometimes, for me as a kid, it was really affected by socioeconomic status. We were poor, poor. My dad was a Vietnam vet. He didn't stick around long. He was all messed up in the head when he came back. My mom had a high school diploma. She did the best she could with 3 kids and a high school diploma. So my limits, the lack of freedom I felt was from just not having means,
Yeah.
right? So it was a limiter, right? Like there were things I couldn't do and opportunities I didn't have. And I'm not saying boo hoo, woe is me. I'm
No,
saying
I got.
I recognize that there are there are things that hold people back or hold people down. And so the only one I can recognize was socioeconomic. I also recognize now that kids are held down, right? Like their opportunities are limited, not because they can't do something or because they don't have something. They're just not old enough in our society to be given the freedom. Remember, that was the word I went back to, like the autonomy to do what they want. I personally believe, and I don't even know if I've shared this with you because I don't share with a lot of people, because a lot of people, they look at me, they're like, what are you talking about? I think children are the largest marginalized group in our culture. They have zero rights. I mean, you like think about like from the perspectives that you've been in with your own children. Like they don't have rights. They almost don't count as full people, right? That's messed up. So we treat kids. So the center I started is called Current Education Center. I don't know if this is going to end up at the beginning of the podcast or the end or whatever. Yeah, so it's called Current Education Center. And current is supposed to be this idea of a river flowing. And it's also meant to bring the idea of current, like this current moment. I wrote a post recently on Facebook that was like talking about this idea of past, present, future. And when we talk about restorative practices, we're talking about, recognizing the past. How are we feeling in the present? And where do we want this to go in the future? Conventional schools to me are stuck in the past, right? They're like 200 years old and haven't changed much, right? Hyper focus on the future. Like you were just asking, what about a job? What about college? That's all a hyper focus on the future. And they generally ignore the present. They're like, oh yeah, this sucks for now. Right? This sucks in the present. We can't do anything about it. You just got to suck it up. You just got to deal with it because it's going to get you to some future. But that's future focused. I know, huh? How
Oh,
about
you
being
already had
me?
me. As soon as we get off of this, yeah, I'm gonna get ready to pull my kids out of school, and we gotta refigure this.
You just if so there's a level of discomfort, and I will call it pain, in awareness. The line is ignorance is bliss, right? You know that one? It's like ignorance is bliss. It's like, but then when you start to become aware, that bliss goes away, right? So
Correct.
it's like, right, the bliss goes away. So then it's like, all right, what am I going to do? Right? Like, how do I deal with that?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I do a lot of breathing,
Okay. Yeah.
because I'm just
I
like,
would imagine so. I would imagine so. Let me ask you this from a logistical. So when did this for you? When did what you did? 24 years in the system education, and when did it go from an idea, a conversation to what? This is happening. Kind of what was that process logistically?
so I had already stepped out of the system to do restorative practices work. It was 2023, summer of 23. I left public school teaching that had been 24 years. And I was doing that, and I was looking at like, how is this going to be a viable career for me? Anything long term meaning being years. And I realized that it would be a really tough go at it for me. I had learned about the type of center that I'm running called self-directed education. I learned about it back in 2017. That was all around when I realized that the coercive school systems are really what we need. What I wanted to help people do is be free from that coercion. I wanted them to learn in a free setting. I wanted them to be free people. So I left school with the blessing of my wife, basically. And because again, still in relationship. I'm not like that was important to me that I didn't step out on my own, right? Like we're still
Yeah.
together, we're still good. So that was almost 3 years ago now. And then the fall of 2024, I did a little workshop with the folks who helped me get my center started. And then from the beginning of 2025, basically all of 2025 was planning. So I
Mm.
went through a planning process with them. They helped work through like some of the logistics and the concept. So there's a couple centers regionally, one in Flemington, New Jersey, one in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, and one in
Okay.
Princeton, New Jersey. The one in
So
Princeton, New
there's a
Jersey.
network of these education centers throughout. This isn't something that Ken
Yes.
just decided I'm out here and
No.
okay.
No. So there's the Princeton one has 15 years of track record. So it's the person who runs Princeton was sort of the mentor leadership in the and
Hmm.
then he was mentored by another center up in Massachusetts that's been at this for about 30 years. So it has a little bit of history, but it's still, when you look at the size of the organization, school systems, again, the district that I live in is $100 million district. The one next door is another $100 million district. If you think about all the teachers, all the people who work in schools, like I'm not trying to dismantle them. I'm trying to offer something different if people want it. So
Okay.
2025 was
That's
our
that's
planning year.
important to share, Ken. I'm glad you said that because the misconception could be like, oh man, so what do we, what are you saying that we just need to tear all the schools down and reach it? And what you're saying is it's working for some folks, but for others, you know what? There are other options. There are other alternatives. There are other ways to be educated, right? To experience this thing called education, right?
And it could also be that, I mean, schools do adjust. It's hard
Hmm.
to change a big system like a school. But if there's enough outside models that are showing some sort of promise, public school systems or conventional schools, public or private, they can adjust. They can never be, it's hard to be what I am. So my center, when I'm full, is only going to be about 30 kids, right? We're talking, 20 to 30 families. I'll know every kid. I'll know every one of their siblings. I'll know every one of their moms and dads. Some of them I'll probably know their aunts and uncles.
Hmm.
I know that they got a new dog. We know all that stuff.
Right. That's essentially the
A big
size of
system
the
with,
average public school classroom, right? 25, 30 students. Now, is that the goal? Like,
right.
is there a goal to
Yep.
get larger or the model is designed for the smaller, right?
Yeah, so the model, I don't have the research on it, but there's a number that's like, it's like 100 or 150. That's
Okay.
sort of the maximum size of a community that everybody can still know everybody. And that's kind of the goal, is not to get any bigger than that. So if we have 30 kids who are members, that's what we call it, members, kind of like you're a member of the Y, the
Yeah.
YMCA or the health club. You can go and if you want to go to the Y every day, go to the Y every day. If you want to go for a class in the morning and come back for a class at night, great. If you want to come on Tuesdays and go swimming, and on Thursdays you want to come take a class with a personal trainer, you can do that. And that's kind of the model. So we have membership. If we have 30 members, we probably see about 25 a day, because some would come or some would go, some would have a job. I have a kid right now who's not quite 17, who he works all day Wednesdays because we're not open Wednesdays because nobody wants to go every day. Um, so he has a job. Kid's making money. He wants to buy a car. He's got a job.
Yeah.
He's getting skills. If he were in conventional school, he wouldn't be able to have that job.
Yeah.
He'd have to be in school. So yeah, I mean, I got stories on stories on stories.
So hold on. Because some of the stuff you're saying is just rolling off, and this is the norm for you. And we've had some conversation before, but I got my ears on for the listeners who might be hearing this stuff for the first time. So, when you think in traditional schools, we think attendance, academics, behavior, right? Like those are kind of like some of the main metrics and whatnot. So when you say like, well, we got members that might show up on Tuesday for class, and then maybe you come in on, well, Wednesdays we don't do it because no one wants to come to school. Like how are we tracking is attendance even a thing? Are grades a thing? Like what does that even look like at current?
I mean, think about your best friends, right? Like you and I, like we're not best friends. Like we're friendly. I would like to see you more, but we just don't. Like, but think about your closest relationships, right? Like not your wife because you guys live in the same house. I mean,
Okay.
you live in the same house, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So you
Yes.
see her every day. She does not have an attendance requirement. You're not taking attendance at your house, but she still shows up.
Yes, she
She's
does.
not taking attendance on you, but you show up because
Yeah.
it's relational, right? So
Yes.
your best friends you probably see, a couple times a week or even, depends on everybody's schedule. Maybe you
Sure.
have like a once a week Thursday night, you're meeting your buddies wherever, the guys
Hmm.
you've known forever,
Right.
whatever. Even if it's church, like that could be a place where it's like, we're meeting here this many times because we're in a relationship.
Right.
So it's all relational.
Okay.
We can't make, I mean, if you think about conventional schools, we try, and I say we, I'm going to put myself in as an educator in conventional schools. We try to make kids do things, they don't do them. Like making a
Yes.
kid do homework, you can't make them do homework unless you put the pencil in their hand and move it on the paper. And in our world, we would say that's doing it for them. And
Yes.
that doesn't count for anything. It doesn't count for anything. We
Yeah.
can't make anybody do anything. You don't make your wife show up at home.
No, I don't.
No,
But thank
right?
God
And
she
and
shows up
thinking of
anyway.
exactly right. Is she hearing that in the background, being like, "I'm out." Ken says I don't have to show
Like,
up.
wait a minute, there's no requirement here? You flipping this whole thing upside
Yeah,
down, Ken.
right. There's no attendance, but even like, and think about church too, right? And again, I know you have faith. You have a faith.
Yeah.
You don't go to church because they're taking attendance,
And if I found out they were
right?
taking attendance, I'll be out. I'll be like, this ain't the place for me.
That's right. Exactly. So a student that does that and says, you know what? I like learning, but you're taking attendance? I'm out. And you're like, no, you're not out. Because if you're out, we're going to either fine your parents or put them in jail or send you to a school where they really lock you down.
Yep.
Just saying,
Okay. All right. What about
just
grades?
saying.
Talk grades. Are grades a thing? How do we know that students are learning? How do we measure learning? Well, maybe we could put it that way.
So growth doesn't have to be so learning in a conventional sense. We don't measure that.
Uh-huh.
We do kids. So most of our kids are homeschooled, and there is
Okay.
a portfolio process in the homeschool in Pennsylvania. Kids are required to maintain a portfolio. And at the end of the year, they're evaluated by somebody who's a certified evaluator, either a teacher, somebody who is or was a teacher, or somebody who is or was a school psychologist. Those kinds of people
Uh-huh.
have credentials in the state of Pennsylvania to be an evaluator. So because I taught secondary school, I'm able to evaluate kids grades 7 through 12, which is most of the kids that I serve. So at the end of the year, we'll sit down with their portfolio, work that they've produced at the center and work that they've produced in other places. And we look at the growth, and it's really up to them and their parents to decide if it's enough growth. We have a kid, right? We have a couple kids right now who are using some online math curriculum where they get a grade. The grade doesn't come from us. The like the program has a grade. If kids decide that they want to go to college, they may need grades, and we can help them make up grades. My business partner, I know you're like, you're going to make up your grades. Everybody gets A pluses and everything.
Let's go.
It,
4.0.
it doesn't matter. It
I
it
mean, to
doesn't
that
matter
point though,
though.
to that point, Ken, if you looked at my high school transcripts right now, University City High School from 2000, man, from 1996 to 2000. The school doesn't even exist no more, but that's another story. But my grades were terrible, terrible. I went to summer school every year, Fs. F's. And then finally something's clicked. Actually, not just something, but a teacher from my math teacher, Miss Matthews. She stopped me at the door one day and said, when are you gonna like wake up and work to your fullest potential? And I didn't have an answer for her, but it sparked something in me. And I'm like, I gotta try to do something, right? Because the course that I was on, which wasn't like terrible, but it was just kind of like cruise control and neutral. And at that time for me, in West Philly, people like me, black males in that city, neutral. If you were neutral, you were headed off a cliff. You know what I mean? Because there were just other things waiting. So I ended up getting accepted to one state school, Indiana University of Pennsylvania, IUP. And once I got the IUP, I was on the dean's list just about the whole time I was there. But if you would looked at my high school transcripts, you would have like I wasn't allowed to go. Schools wouldn't accept me. I literally got into one school by the skin of my teeth for their summer program. And they were like with a close eye, like, if you can do this, then we'll let you in. And I had to kind of prove my way in. And then from there, I went to University of Pennsylvania for grad school and, did well there. But it was like, and I struggled a lot there, more so with my own kind of like, do I belong here? Like Ivy League school, master's degree, like, huh? Right? I'm the kid that got all F's in high school. Like, how did this even happen? Right? So, yeah. So when you said that about the grades and how they
And I
don't
would
matter,
say they don't matter. You're fine. You're better than
thank you.
fine. I put like, if I made a list of like the people I want to have lunch with, you'd make the top of my list. Like, they're just people I want to be with. Like, you don't have to do anything. Like, for
Yeah.
me, you don't need to, for me, I don't need you to have A's. I don't
Mm,
care. You're a
yeah.
good dude. What's wrong with that? Right? Like, so
Yeah. No, I hear you. I
I
hear
would
you.
go back to, I would go back to, the reason you did well in college is because you chose to go.
Mm,
Nobody forced you to go to college. People forced you to go to high school. But once you had a choice, you dug in.
mhm. Yeah.
And that's not right?
Yes. Yes. Because there was much more freedom there. I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to, like, there's no homework here. There's nobody's like making me go. They took attendance, but it was just kind of like, if you show up, you do. If you don't, you don't. But it's on you. Like, it was completely on me. And that's when I started showing up. My attendance in high school was terrible. 'Cause I had to be there. So, that was, man, you really got me thinking. I'm gonna have to spend some time reflecting on that, that high school experience, those 4 years in high school versus the 4 years in college. What were some of the factors that made the difference and why I was seeing success, right?
So we treat our kids more like they're college students than
Okay,
middle school and high school. So they have a
okay,
choice. We have classes. They don't all look like conventional school classes. The classes are generally picked by the kids. And if a kid wants to come to a class, once they've selected a class, we expect them to go to it. Like, if you chose a class in college, you're expected to be there.
okay. So there
But
are
we
expectations.
don't you don't have to. Sure.
So
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. Yeah, we're
so
not.
that's
So here's the analogy. I heard this analogy recently. It was
okay.
actually shared to me by a friend called ChatGPT, but I really
Yeah,
like it. Uh, where if you look at our logo and even our name of Current, right? Our logo looks like a river, right? Like, it flows and it moves just like water flows and moves, right? That's natural. It kind of meanders. That's the language. Like, it meanders back and forth, just like people meander back and forth. Now, a canal, right, that they put next to a river is straight lines, concrete or whatever. It's like dug and it's straight lines. We're not a canal, we're a river, right?
mm,
The river has banks that keep the water in, right? Keeps
yes,
the water in, but we're not a canal. We don't require straight lines. We don't require constant straight moving. We let it meander within boundaries.
I love that. Okay. No, that's cool, and that helps to. I think that brings a nice, I think, framework, or at least from an understanding standpoint. If someone is hearing this for the first time, hearing that in the river analogy, but also the comparison between the river and the canal. With reapproach, the way that reapproach was even birthed, it came from me leading schools, particularly alternative schools, and wanting to be a more restorative leader. By natural, I'm a four. I like to say I'm a recovering four because that's just kind of my default setting. And, we travel in the country doing these trainings and working with all of these schools. And I'm coming back to this school and I'm like, I need to make sure that I'm practicing what I preach. I need to really be doing the things. And I keep showing up in this four space. And so I'm like, how do I anchor myself in the width? And so what I did was I just looked at expectations, accountability, and support. And I'm like, do I have expectations? Am I creating a culture of accountability and not so much like, well, if you do this, you get a consequence, which, there was some of that, right? And then support. Am I providing the appropriate level of support for folks to meet the expectation that I set? And so that kind of like formed the reapproach kind of triangle and whatnot. This was before I was even thinking about it. This was just
Mm.
my day to day system. Like, okay, as a leader, when I show up to help lead this school and this community, do I have expectations for people? What are they? Are they properly communicated? Like all of those things, right? What does accountability look like? What does support look like? And that just kind of like, I realized that if I had those three in place and they were balanced, then it would help me as a person kind of live and be anchored into the width, into that, and it's something that not just in schools, but at home with my kids, with my family, it's just a part of, who I am. And as a result, the reapproach, I guess, recipe, if you will, I like to call it reapproach recipe, lead with ease, EAS, or approach it with ease. And then there's the three C's: connection, communication, and commitment. And then the final ingredient is love. Like I really believe in, and not love in the like, oh, it's got to be soft or it's got to be like whatever, although it could be, but really just having empathy, compassion, that kind of thing, making sure that we have that relational approach. And so it's interesting to see how those ingredients fit within your framework. It looks different than how it might look maybe in the school that I'm working with now, but it's still the elements still exist there.
Yeah, and I think it's easier for me, actually, much easier for me in my setting because that's the design. I think one of the pieces that makes it harder for people to do the work, restorative work in conventional schools is because the system's not designed for it. So you not only do you have to maintain yourself, you have to do it in a system that tries to not get you to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so
That's
you're
right.
like, you have to first you have to, like, keep feeding yourself, like, keep doing the work for yourself, and then go into a system that says, "That's not how we work." So you gotta keep doing that even more and more. You're in the language that I would use is that you're fighting the grain, right?
Mm,
Like, so, again, it's the same kinda idea of natural flow. Like, you're not in a natural flow state because the system that you're in, you're cutting across the grain. So if you've ever
mhm.
cut wood, it's easy to cut with the grain. It's really hard to cut across the grain, and using restorative practices in a punitive controlling system like schools is across the grain.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm doing it in the grain.
Mhm.
My fight is to get anybody to realize that that's the grain. So, but yeah, I would say it's easier for me. It's still a battle of like trying to remind myself that the river needs banks, right? Like the river needs to stay in the stream. Otherwise it's going to be a flood, right? We don't want
Yeah.
a flood,
We don't
right?
want to flood.
So that's that expectations and accountability. I
That's right.
also, when I did a training out in Oregon, and they were trying to raise the expectations for kids on their behavior. And what I realized was they were trying to raise the expectations, but they weren't giving them any additional support.
Ah,
So for me, it's like, well, if you're going to raise, it's like,
yes.
yes, okay, we've raised the expectation, but we have not provided any additional support. So if we're like moving up in the matrix, right, of like if you think about the quadrant, social discipline window, engagement window, whatever you want to call that, uh,
Mhm.
they're just going this way without any extra support.
Yeah.
That was one of the big takeaways for me and my own learning at that during that training was, if you're going to raise the expectations, you also need to also meet that with an increased amount of support. You can't doing one without the other just gets you off balance.
You're off balance. Yeah. Yeah. No, that is that's dope, man. That's dope. You can't yeah, it's like, all right, you paint the
All
wall.
right. So,
Paint the wall is good. But now I need you to paint the ceiling. And it's like, can I get a ladder? Can I get something to stand on? And it's like, nope, you just gotta paint the ceiling now. You know what I mean? And if you don't, we're gonna hold you accountable to that and there's consequences. Like, okay.
but to do it now. Do it now because it's time. It's ceiling painting time, right? You're supposed to be in ceiling painting class, but you can't do it right now. Well, that's an F. It's just all. Now
Yeah.
you're getting me worked up. I was Did I blow your mind enough for one day? Are we
I
good
think
for?
so. I think this is good, man. This is good. We're gonna have to have you back and
Yeah.
start unpacking some more.